Welcome to Navigating Your Retirement. I'm your co-host, Tony Shore, and I'm here with our host, the man with the plan, Travis Chance. Travis, great to be with you again today. I know you had a big event last week, and you've been very busy. This is a busy time of year for you, isn't it?
It is, and to top it off, I am exhausted trying to watch the World Series last night and just
Oh,
absolutely fell asleep. Couldn't do it. 18 innings. What in the holy, you know what?
same. I went to bed. You know
I was
what's
like,
funny? I
ugh,
I flipped over. There were three major sporting events on TV last night, for at least for me.
yeah,
There was the World Series, and I've been watching that. And then Monday Night Football, watch
yep.
the Chiefs, watch that game. Then um, I'm a big Minnesota United, the Loons soccer fan, and the
Okay.
first game of the playoffs. We're in the playoffs this year, which is big for us. And so I was watching that, but so I watched the end of the soccer game, flipped over, and the end of the football game. Then that ended. Then the soccer game ended after that. And then I'm watching baseball. I'm like, no, I can't keep. This is crazy.
Yeah,
I
I
made
I
it to.
watched
I only made it to like 11,
I
11 innings.
watched it
So
until like I said 10 or 11. Actually,
yeah,
I can't back that up. I don't know when I watched it too because all of a sudden, the
you were
game is off
asleep.
and I'm cutting off the TV because it's just playing in playing in the background as
yeah,
I've been asleep for I
yeah,
don't know how long. But
yeah. I
yeah,
was dozing
I
off.
watched Otani hit the seventh or the one in the seventh, the
Yep.
home run in the seventh, and then that's honestly the last clear memory I have. I was kind of dazing in and out, and I was like, oh my gosh, is this thing ever going to end? And then I
Man,
woke
that
up this morning and
Otani.
I'm like, 18 innings. Are you kidding me?
This
They
is the
they
problem
played
with
two games
baseball.
last night.
Yeah, they really did. Yeah, they played two full games. Yeah,
Two full games, and then
that's
of
insane.
course, former Brave and Freddie Freeman hitting the walk off, which that's first player. Isn't he the first player in history to have two walk offs in the World Series? Because he had one the last time.
He might be.
I
Yeah.
think he is.
Wow.
So yeah, that's just crazy. But yeah, I was flipping back and forth too, and watching Mahomes and the Chiefs beat the bejesus out of
Yeah, they
the
really
Commanders.
did.
But
Yeah, that wasn't a game. No.
I will say this: we are getting to a very delicate stage in football because one of the hits on Mahomes last night, this guy basically like just eased up. One of the defensive linemen eased up, and yes, he did throw Mahomes down,
Yeah, I
but he
saw it.
gets a
I know what
personal
you're talking
foul
about. Yeah.
for basically laying him on a pillow. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, you got to let these people play.
Yeah,
I
it's not
mean,
like he ran through him, right?
right. And if it had been a
He
backup,
was trying to ease up after he realized he was in forward motion, the ball
yeah,
left.
and instead of falling on him, he just laid him down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get that.
No.
That's that.
There
You
were
know,
some jicky jack calls in that game. Holy cow.
I
I
think
stopped watching that after the half. I'm like, nope, and then I realized the soccer games. I'm like, oh man, the United are playing their first game of the playoffs on Fox Sports 1. So I watched that, and then I'm flipping back and forth to the ball game, and I saw the home run in, I think it was the seventh. Otani is in
mhm.
that he may be the best baseball player ever
Well,
to
the
go to live,
other what was it?
ever.
The first game he threw one game
He
he had
no
three home runs and 10 strikeouts.
Yeah, he pitched a no hitter and hit three home runs.
Yeah,
Never before done by
right.
anyone ever, ever. That
Well,
guy is amazing.
what I was going to say on the football thing, last comment.
Oh
You
yeah,
know, I understand, trying to protect these guys, but at the end of the day, this is a contact sport,
yeah, yeah.
and I don't understand. If
No,
this would have been a backup on the Indianapolis Colts or somebody else,
no
that
way
call
would they have
probably
made that
doesn't
call.
get
Right?
that flag doesn't get thrown,
No,
right?
no.
But the Brady rule, and then now anything Mahomes
Mahomes.
or
Yeah,
any of those guys, and even if it was Josh Allen, I don't know if it gets called on Josh Allen. So anyway,
yeah,
long story short, I
yeah.
digress.
No,
But
I agree with you 100.
it
percent
is the psychology of our sports, which actually ties into our title today, Tony. The psychology of spending in retirement. Uh,
Yeah.
so
What do you
uh,
mean by that? What do you mean, Travis? The psychology of spending in retirement.
so So one of the things that I have in conversation is I have a lot of clients, and not really. I wouldn't say clients. Let me couch this a different way. Wouldn't be clients so much today, because most of our clients, we go ahead and prepare them for things like there was a great article from Market Watch about being aware and kind of leery of the lost decade, which is actually more of a risk to clients than just a single crash, right? It's a single stock market, which brings a lot of fear, which causes the psychology behind retirement spending is, I don't want to spend too much because what if, right? What if these things happen? But the show today is actually more about the overall arch of how a client thinks in retirement. So we'll start with, like, for instance, we talked in previous shows about, you save your whole life, you spend all this time putting money away, creating this nest egg, creating this snowball, if you will, so that you can allow it to start feeding you, because you've been feeding it for all of your career.
Right.
And it comes down to, when you retire, Tony, it's very hard. And I even used the phrase before we got on the show. It's very hard to put down the yoke, so to speak. It's hard
Yep.
whenever you're carrying that psychological burden in life, and you're paying your bills, and you're planning for the kids, and your household budget, and your spending, etc., and gotta still leave enough money to save at the end of the day. And sometimes budgets get tight, and it causes us to really get conditioned to maybe carry that into retirement, right?
Hmm.
Because retirement is a totally different phase. You're not going to have, most likely, the kids living at home, which that may be today. That could be the case, but
Sure.
it's certainly not in most situations. So what I want to talk about is the three, what I think are the three categories of the spending mindset of retirement. And the easiest thing to start with is always the one that I think many battle with, is it's the fearful spender in retirement. Because let's be honest, there's nothing that I think anyone could envision worse than running out of money before you run out of breath.
Right.
That is a huge issue psychologically for a lot of people, and that is totally understandable. There's also maybe the person who is on the other end of the spectrum, right?
Right.
They're maybe spending a little more than they should, because they don't think the market's ever going to go down, right? They're just seeing it go up. It's kind of like we talked about the hot hand theory from basketball. You think just because your last 5 threes went in, your next one's going to go automatically.
Right.
And then you've got the one that's kind of in the middle, which is where I think the most peace of mind rest is. There is a healthy balance, right? So emotional drivers behind everyone. So let's talk through, some of the things that we need to really kind of hone in on. So first things
Yeah.
first, the fearful person who doesn't want to run out of money, and maybe doesn't spend enough. I've had this conversation a lot recently, specifically one couple. Um, great clients, been with me for almost 8 years now. Started off, just hey, Travis, we're going to retire X date. We're planning on doing, these are the things, and travel, etc. We don't have any kids, so we don't really have a legacy goal. And here we are 8 years later, and Tony, I have this conversation quite a bit, where I'm consistently encouraging them, to the point of almost, I feel like, being obnoxious, saying, hey guys, can we spend some money? Because, and I know that's very counterintuitive to what you would hear a financial advisor say, but my philosophy is this: if you don't have a legacy goal in mind, who are you saving this money for?
You can't take it with
You
you.
can't take it with you.
And
They
when
can
you're
print a cashier's check and put it in your pocket and still have money in the bank, right?
in long-term care, or I mean, nowadays so many people end up in long-term care with memory issues. You can't enjoy it then. I mean, are you saving it to go to a long-term care facility? Don't do that.
Yeah, I
You
don't
need to
think that.
spend it when you're able to enjoy it. But then again, it depends on how much you have. But people always think, no matter how much they have, A lot of people, because they're in this I gotta save mode, they can't let loose and actually spend. And a lot of people, no matter how much they have, it's never enough, right?
Right. And I think that's probably the case of what's going on now is these clients are like I said, super people, as all of our clients are, but they're super people. They're certainly not spendthrifts. They're not just going out and, making it rain, so to speak, and throwing dollar bills in the air. But my thought process to them was like, look, if there's something that you want to do, if there's a bucket list, and maybe there's not, maybe that's just for some of you guys listening out there, maybe you don't have that bucket list, and that's okay. But if there's something out there that you want to do, why not? Why not do it? This world is a great big place. It's not probably flat like some people say, Tony. There's a whole round world out there waiting for us to
The old
to
flat
enjoy.
Earth society, yeah.
But I think it comes down to a couple things, and I've kind of put it into three roots of why they might be fearful. Number one, maybe it's just they have the thoughts, and if you're out there planning for yourself, maybe this is you. You remember what it felt like in 2008. You remember what it felt like in the dot-com crash, the stock market crash in the early 2000s. You see all the irrational exuberance going on today with all the AI and the technology, and you're sitting there thinking, man, this thing might not be exact, but it sure does rhyme. And maybe that's what you're thinking, and you're like, you know what, I can't spend right now. Like, I've got to wait. And you know what? Maybe you're right, but what if you're wrong?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not saying, once again, Tony, that you go out and you just spend blindly, but that's the reason why we encourage our clients, plan as if it's going to be that worst case scenario. I
Right.
mean, just like the article, and it was very odd when I read that this morning, because I'm sitting there thinking, that's what I've been preaching for the last 15, 20 years. Plan as if it's going to be the dot-com crash. Plan as if it's going to be 2008. And if you can be successful even going through the lost decade, then you've already established that your portfolio could probably survive it. And you could still be successful. So you're not just, sitting home and not doing the things you want to do. So maybe, like I said, it's the pain of maybe thinking about the crashes, or maybe it's just, you look at your portfolio and you're seeing it go up, and the thought of you spending money and watching that balance go down is more than you can stand, and you're like, you know what, I can't do it. It's got to be moving in one direction, right? And
Right.
the markets are like the tides, they ebb and flow. It's never going to go all in one direction all at one time. We had a pretty strong correction beginning of this year, and it's turned out pretty well. But as we know from recent memory, markets just don't go up. They go down as well sometimes. And usually it's 1 out of 4. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And then the last, but certainly not least, I think one of the reasons that people, when I said I had 3, so that's 2. 3 is, I think a lot of people are now getting to the point where, when you were working and seeing that balance appreciate, and all of a sudden you had high 6 figures, low 7 figures, or even mid seven figures. You started getting $1 million in your 401k.
Right.
That felt really good. But the problem is, now you may be sitting there thinking, how do I convert that to income? How
That's
do
the
I?
trick, isn't it?
Yes.
That's the tough part that people struggle with.
Social Security, when you elect that, it's flipped on for life. If you do have a pension, that's flipped on for life. But maybe it's the fear of the unknown of, how am I going to produce income? And
Right.
folks, that's all a breeding ground for what I don't want you to do. And what I don't want you to do is, I don't want you to have regrets that later in life, when you do get to the point where you maybe can't do the things, you can't go to Italy and do the bike ride around the Dolomites, or you
Sure.
can't go out, can't go to New Zealand and go island hopping, or get on that cruise and go to Australia. And I'm only quoting because these are actually trips my clients. I live vicariously through my clients, Tony. They've actually had these trips.
Hunting
Go.
trip to New Zealand. I mean,
Well, no, go on. I had one yesterday. They just booked passage on. It's a 54-day cruise. They're doing
54
Fiji,
days.
Australia, New Zealand. They're basically doing Australia and the South Pacific.
Wow.
It sounded pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But these are the types of things that what are we waiting on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I know I'm not saying it's the YOLO, Tony. I'm not saying it's the you only live once and blow it all. But these are things that you can plan for. And these are things that if this is what is in your wheelhouse, it's what's going to make you happy, why not? Right. I mean, that's really the key. But here's the last thing I'm going to say about this, and I'm gonna tie this bow on this particular section, is we don't want to get to later in life when you start having regret, because I've never had a client regret doing something. I've had a lot of clients regret not doing something, but I've never had one regret actually taking the trip, buying the thing, or doing something good for their community or their family. Right? These are the things we want to enjoy and do during life, not wait until we can't and later on in life. So
Right. Yeah, and you've talked about it on the show before, the three stages of retirement: the go-go years, the slow-go years, and the no-go years. And your money's going to be mainly spent on healthcare in those slow and no-go years.
mhm.
So during the go-go years and into the slow-go years, if you want to travel, if you want to do stuff with the grandkids, that's the time. But make sure you have it budgeted. You have to work with a financial advisor, because, like you said,
It's no
Travis.
different. It's no different than when you were working, Tony, or you and I right now. I
Yeah,
mean, if, for instance, I saved for 2 years to go to New Zealand,
yeah,
you have a budget, you have a certain amount in mind. You say, okay, it's 2 years from now. How do I get there? What do I need to save per month? And that's what you and I do right now, and that's what they've done, and probably continue to do now. I need a car. I want to do an addition, a room on the house, maybe close in the sun porch. I
yeah,
mean, it all has a price, and we just need to
right,
figure out how to make that price happen.
sure,
And that's what I think leads us to, maybe there's another side to this. Tony, every head has a tail, right? If you every coin, every head
sure,
has a tail. And there are those that are on the opposite end, that, we just talked about the fearful spender. Well, there's also the exuberant spender that basically they're in the honeymoon phase in perpetuity.
yeah,
Now that, folks, that's where I think we need to focus is, if you're afraid of spending and you turn the heat up just a little bit, you'll probably be okay. But if you're the other side, the exuberant spender, that could be an issue,
yeah.
because that's the problem, that most people are afraid of these crashes. But if you don't respect the market and you just think that it's just going to go up,
Like, you can keep pulling 5% a year out no matter
well,
what, and
no,
you
I
can
mean, I've
keep it all
seen,
in the market.
what if you have clients that are pulling 10 or 12% a
Yeah,
year?
or hey, I'm going to pull 100% out this year to buy an RV, or
Whatever.
$100,000.
That comes from, I think that comes from the fact that, you see the markets rebound and
Yeah,
you're just like, I'm just going to keep spending. The problem is, for instance, if you need that high level of income, where let's say you have $1.5 million, I'm just giving you an example. Let's say you have
sure,
$1.5 million and you want to take 50 grand. Well, that's about three plus or minus 3% of your portfolio, right? That's 45K would be about three. So a little over 3% of your 3.3% of your portfolio. Well, if all of a sudden you have a 20% correction and you're all in stocks like we were back in the springtime, and you needed, let's say, that distribution in April, well, now that could represent a one time of maybe 5 or 6% of your portfolio, right? Because if you're pulling 50 and now your portfolio is only 1.2 million, that distribution rate just went up. That could be an issue, right? It's the timing of when you're spending and how much you're spending. because when markets are going up and it's literally you're up 3% for the month and you only pulled 0.25%, Tony, you're never going to have an issue. But
Right.
it's those issues where you need 5% and the market's down 5% that month that just compounded your loss.
Yeah.
So I think that's where people maybe overestimate, or what was the expression I used last week? They I see people that never fail to overestimate their ability to underestimate their ability. So actually, what was that? Folks, it's been a long week, and after that war series, never underestimate your ability to overestimate your ability. So
Yes, there you go. There you go.
so once again, we're not keeping up with the Joneses, folks. Your
No.
retirement is your retirement. Don't give in to confirmation bias, just assuming that what you're reading is always going to be the right stuff. Never think that it's the hot hand theory, and just because it can go up, it will go up. And there's sometimes when buying that thing or paying for that vacation, maybe that's not the right thing to do. Maybe timing could be something you could use to your advantage and maybe temper it a little bit. So once again, we've got the fearful and we've got the exuberant, and if you mix and mesh those together, Tony, what do you have? You have a balanced approach, and
Yeah.
that's what I think we need to get to the point of. Is you need to align your money with your values, with what's going to bring you satisfaction in life. Yes, are you going to be able to take around the world trips every year? Maybe not, but there's probably a list of things that you wanted to do. Maybe that's one of the coolest vacations I've ever heard. I had a client, actually I've had several, but the first one, she took her and her entire family to Alaska for 2 weeks,
Oh,
and it
wow.
was like 50 grand. And you know what? That client 10 years later still talks about it to this day.
Oh, yeah. And the family she took there probably still
Correct.
talks about it.
And
That's the
think
thing.
about
Yeah.
that. She got to go and enjoy her grandkids when they were in their preteens to
Yeah.
teens. Think about the quality time they got to spend, the things they got to do, the experiences that will live in them for the rest of their life. That's something you can't put a price on. It
Yeah.
costs 50 grand to do it, but you can't put a price on what the net
No.
result was.
No, and that's why you work so hard. That's what you need. That's a great thing because you can't take it with you. Why not do something like that and enjoy it?
Absolutely.
That's
But
huge.
one of the things that we talk about over and over, Tony, is that's the real benefit and the purpose of planning.
Hmm.
And to kind of put a bow on the show, that's why you do it. It's not, you people think sometimes planning is just linked to crisis planning, right? Something's happened, I got to plan for it. That's not when it's the most opportune time to plan. The most opportune time to plan is when everything's all calm, because that way when things do get rough, you've already got a path forward and you know how you're going to get through this. That's the real key to having that peace of mind and not being that fearful investor, but also not allowing yourself to get over exuberant and
Hmm.
put your portfolio and family at risk that are really unnecessary.
Right.
So, retirement isn't just about preserving your wealth. It's about living well with the wealth you've built. And when you pass, you leave that to your kids and grandkids, or your legacy to those you want to benefit as efficient as possible, right?
Yep.
And that's what I think we need to focus on. And folks, if you're out there listening and you're a client, you're already on your way. But there are those that you probably come into contact with every day, whether they're family members, they're coworkers, they're people in your life that just come in and out. If you've got those out there that are, going through maybe a rough time because they don't have that plan, that's why you need to click forward on this podcast, and you need to give them our number and let them give us a call at 877-269-0839. That's 877-269-0839, and give them the best Christmas gift you can give them this year. And it doesn't cost you a thing. Send them down the path of certainty, not uncertainty. And folks, that's what the giving season is all about, Tony. And that's what planning is all about.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Travis. A lot of great wisdom in today's show. You don't want to make costly mistakes with your retirement money. You want to have a plan so you can enjoy it. Now, one more time, give our listeners and viewers out there your phone number and your contact information.
Absolutely, Tony. 877-269-0839. That's 877-269-0839.
All right, and that does it for today's episode of Navigating Your Retirement with our host, Travis Chance.